alpha male versus beta male, I feel like it's a distraction from men following Christ.
Okay. Tell me more.
Well, we're constantly competing with each other, because in order for there to be an established alpha and an established beta, there must be competition. And I know for me, because my whole life, Cap, was built on competition until I was 36 years old. You know, from the time I was 4 years old, and they were like, oh, this kid's like special, but maybe not in the best way. The world likes to call it ADHD. But my whole life was just like activity, achieving, doing, being better than somebody, constantly as an athlete, comparing yourself to other people to see where you stack up. So to circle it back to alpha versus beta, like with that worldly innate need to compete and compare, man, when I encountered God at 36 years old, I was carrying so much unworthiness, so much guilt, so much shame that I needed the affirmation or the confirmation from besting another person or competing and being more successful than somebody else. I needed that, because internally, if people really knew who I was, what I've done, the lies that I've told, the women that I've taken advantage of, the things that I've stolen, the things that were done to me, I would never be lovable. But when I had a radical encounter with God at a men's conference when I was 36 years old, like, I experienced unconditional love for the very first time. I didn't need to do anything, and I was like, enough. Joy. At the time, if you say, Steve, what are you I couldn't tell you that it was joy, but I got joy that came from Jesus, man. And I experienced peace. I had never experienced peace. I feel like everything was just a constant strive or a constant competition. And then after I encountered God, the way that I looked at other men, the way that I looked at myself absolutely transformed and changed, because I experienced that, I was able to finally lay down like a lot of the burdens, the depression, the anxiety, even suicidal thoughts. Like, yeah, you're like, oh, you're achieved the Super Bowl and you achieved the fittest man in the NFL, and I kind of correct you twice, you know, like, put some respect on my name. But even with, whoever's watching this right now, even if you went and Googled my name and looked at all the awards and achievements that I've made, you would think that guy's gotta be like living the dream. But you don't realize every single person that you watch on TV, they have a story. They have a testimony. They have like an inner dialogue and struggle with themselves. And it wasn't until I encountered God that I knew that God was real, that I knew that he operated outside of time, and I knew that there was nothing that I could ever do that would ever make him love me more than he loved me right then, or nothing I had done in the past that would ever separate me from his love. So after that moment and laying down those burdens, like, my perspective changed, my personality changed, my appetite changed, and the way that I looked at other men changed. Like, before, I could see their insecurities or their inadequacies or their weaknesses, and I would take advantage of them, just like an athlete would take advantage of the weaknesses of another athlete, and I would expose them, and I would be better than them. My whole life was about competing, but then when God touched my heart, now I can see all of those weaknesses, all of those insecurities, all of those shortcomings, and now I look to complete other men instead of to compete with other men, and it completely changed my world, because everybody has gaps.
Yeah.
And I've also noticed that God has formed, through sports and being a team captain, God has really formed like a supernatural encourager in me. And now I have eyes to see the gaps of other men, and also the skill set and the mastery of being able to speak courage into that insecurity to get men to take action, to get off of the couch, or to get out of dysfunction, or to break religion off of their life.
Yeah.
So I know that was a really long answer to what's your opinion on alpha versus beta. I believe that once you encounter God, you don't look at men as better or less than you. You look at them as a son of God, because there's 3 assignments that we have, and a lot of people are like, oh man, like, what's my destiny? What's my calling? What's my assignment from God? What's my purpose? And for everybody listening to this, is to love God. Number 1, love God with all your heart, soul, and strength. The second one is to love your neighbor more than you loved yourself. But at the time, I didn't love myself. So when God touched me and took away so much of the burdens that everybody carries around insecurity or lust or porn or pills or weed. And some of you guys, it's not that big. Maybe it's pride. Maybe it's escapism. Maybe it's complacency. Maybe it's just being lukewarm. That's one of the number one things that God detests.
Yeah.
You know, like two things you don't want to be, and then I'll finish the 3 parts, is like God hates a coward, and he just will spit you out if you're lukewarm.
Right.
You're the pastor, so you know the verses for that. This is your show. You can pop them on the screen. But my point in mentioning those things is like, I feel like life and purpose got simplified a lot after I had an encounter with God. If you asked me that question 7 years ago, I would have probably a very, very Andrew Tate mixed with David Goggins answer for you, because my answer to everything was discipline, hard work, sacrifice, and grind. And I had become my own idol because I was my own answer to every problem.
My goodness.